Our next session in the Golden Ballroom, our session A5, ideas to upgrade and reform our education system. But before we do, I would like to invite those of you who are still outside of the ballroom to please do come inside and kindly take a seat because we are soon to begin our next session. Dan sekali lagi kami ingatkan kembali bagi Bapak dan Ibu dan juga peserta yang hendak menggunakan alat interpretasi dari bahasa Inggris ke bahasa Indonesia, kami persilakan untuk bisa menggunakan alat interpretasi dengan cara tunjuk tangan, minta tolong ke tim panitia, atau bisa juga langsung menghampiri meja alat interpretasi yang berada di sisi sebelah kiri panggung. Dan kami mohon kerjasamanya untuk bisa mengembalikan alat tersebut jika memang hendak keluar dari area ballroom ini. So without further ado, ladies and gentlemen, once again we welcome you. And once again, for those of you who have not yet taken a seat, please do because we are soon to begin our next session, session A5. Ideas to upgrade and reform our education system. Thank you. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Can I have another round of applause for our ASEAN for the People's Conference 2025. And once again, we welcome you to the Golden Ballroom of the Sultan Hotel, and we are about to begin session A5, titled Ideas to Upgrade and Reform Our Education Ecosystem. But before we do, I would like to once again remind you, ingin kami ingatkan kembali, jika Bapak dan Ibu dan peserta ingin menggunakan alat interpretasi dari bahasa Inggris ke bahasa Indonesia untuk sesi ini, kami persilakan untuk bisa menunjuk tangan dan nanti meminta alat interpretasi tersebut kepada tim panitia kami atau bisa langsung menghampiri meja alat interpretasi yang berada di sisi sebelah kiri panggung. Jangan langsung saja, kami persilakan. Tapi kami mohon jika hendak meninggalkan ruangan untuk bisa terlebih dahulu mengembalikan alat tersebut. All right, ladies and gentlemen, as we have seen from early on, everyone is ready to join in for our session A5. Therefore, without further ado, allow me to introduce to you and of course invite onto the stage the moderator who will lead this session's discussion. So please give a round of applause to Agatha Chelsea, neuroscience educator, founder of Neuron Edu, and entertaining onto the stage.
Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to ASEAN for the People's Conference 2025. I'm Agatha Chelsea, youth educator and founder of Neuron Edu, a neuroscience-based learning media. It's an honor to be your moderator on this session. Our session today is titled Education, Ideas to Upgrade and Reform Our Education Ecosystem. As we all know, across Southeast Asia, we share one big challenge: how to make education not just accessible, but meaningful, inclusive, and future-ready. According to the World Bank, learning poverty, the inability to understand a simple text by the age of 10, remains high in several ASEAN member states, with Indonesia at 53%, Myanmar at 89%, Cambodia at 90%, and the Philippines at 91%. This gap in foundational skills threatens to undermine the region's human capital. Moreover, with the rise of technology and automation, demands new forms of digital literacy, problem solving, and adaptability. Therefore, Southeast Asia must rethink not just access, but also the quality and relevance of its education systems, from curriculum design to teacher training. We're joined today by inspiring leaders who've been hands-on in shaping education in different ways, from classrooms and universities to national reforms. I would like to invite our honored speakers, Pak Anies Baswedan, former Minister of Education and Culture of Indonesia, former Governor of Jakarta and founder of Indonesia Mengajar and Aksi Bersama. Thank you so much, Pak Anies. And the next speaker, Associate Professor Dr. Nguyen Tan Lam, Vice Rector of Lac Long University, Vietnam, alongside Mr. Samuel Isaiah, Executive Director of Pemimpin Global School Leaders Malaysia, and Mr. Chatra Q, Executive Director of the NGO Education Partnership in Cambodia. Now, with all of our speakers on stage, we would like to start the session. We will start the session with Pak Anies. Thank you so much for joining us. I'll be asking you a few questions one at a time to guide our discussion. The first question would be, Indonesia is projected to become the world's fourth largest economy by 2045 and the largest in ASEAN. With that in mind, what do you think is outdated in our education system, and what kind of reform do we need to prepare in the next generation?
Thank you. First of all, I'd like to congratulate the organizer, Pak Dino, and all the committee for organizing such a great conference of the people of ASEAN. Let's give a round of applause to Pak Dino and friends. Let me go directly to the questions. ASEAN educations. If I may touch a little bit on this issue. Before ASEAN was formed in 1967, it was initially meetings of Minister of Education that started all of this. It was in 1965, and I think next November we'll commemorate the 60 years of Sea Moy, the Southeast Asia Minister of Education. And it was the collaborations of Ministry of Education, Minister of Educations, and collaboration of educations that lead into ASEAN. And I hope that collaboration continue and strengthening the people of ASEAN collaborations. Now, with your questions, I think there's a phenomenon today that we're facing that we have a children of 21st century. However, our school system is still operating in the 20th century mindset. So the students were 21st century, the teachers were 20th century, and the classroom layout is 19th centuries actually. So 3 centuries differences in our schools. So if we are talking about that, what is outdated, I would say that the root cause is that our system today is still designed for industrial age education system. Mass instructions, memorizations, conformity, and it is not yet designed for today's digital network and fast-changing age. So that's issue number one. And then there is a hidden inequality. The inequality is not only about inequality in terms of access to teachers, or access to facilities, or access to schools, but inequality of imagination. This is even more challenging. Children in the cities are exposed to possibilities that is so large. They're exposed to role models, new technologies, and vast opportunities. On the other hand, children in the rural areas or in the poor areas, they may never meet people who went to universities. They may never meet people who work in an emerging industry. So, and without imaginations of what is possible, talent is wasted before it has even had a chance to grow. So the reform that is needed to address this outdated problems in our education system is not only to reform about skills gap, but also about dreams gap. I often talk to our teachers that when you speak to your students and ask them about what do you want to do in the future, what do you want to be in the future, whatever is in their dream is a function of their knowledge. If students don't even know what is a pilot, there is no way they can dream of becoming a pilot. So dreams is a function of knowledge, and it is extremely important today to, one, reform our school system from the 20th century mindset into 21st century mindset, and then address not only skill gaps, but also imagination gap. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Panis. That's a very powerful perspective on how we should reform not only our school system, but also address our imagination gap. Moving on to the next question. As the job market changes so fast, Pa, especially with technology, automation, and new industries, how can governments and stakeholders ensure that education truly matches today's job demands?
Yes, indeed. Jobs market are transforming. We have been seeing that AI, automatizations, gig economy already changing how people earn a living. So many routines job will disappear. We have seen that. On the other hand, creativity, collaborations, and adaptability matter even more. However, if I may respond to that, we should never see education simply as means to prepare young people to be an employee or for the job market. Education is not simply work preparations. We must prepare our students, our young people, to be citizens, to be a complete individuals that are able to think critically, engage in a democracy, solve community problems. And there are a few areas that must be focused on that. Number one is on digital literacy. Ability to use technology wisely is important, not simply ability to operate technology. And ability to produce content is much more important than our technical skills in consuming materials in the digital device. Number two is problem solving. Ability to solve problems, learning how to find solutions to new challenges is even more critical today than it used to be. And therefore, our school system must prepare that. And the third component, which is not less important, is empathy and collaborations. We are now living in the world where collaborations is one of a key ingredient for success for all, not only for individual success. Therefore, we have been seeing that educations in the aspect of empathy and collaborations has produced students with ability to work across cultures, across disciplines, and not only succeeding individually. And we're talking about ASEAN. I think we need to move a little bit further on regional mobility for learning. If I may share here, we need exchanges not only of university students, but also movement of teachers, young volunteers, curriculum experiments across nations in ASEAN, across countries in ASEAN. So I'll give you an example. A math teacher from Vietnam, for example, teaching in rural Indonesia for a year. A youth volunteer from Cambodia, perhaps helping digital literacy in Malaysia. Those mobility help not only in terms of skills, but also in terms of children growing up together, seeing themselves as part of ASEAN community. So with that, I hope we will be able to make education more relevant and even more relevant to the future of ASEAN community. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your answer, Panis. That connects so well to the theme of relevance, that education should not only inform us, but also prepare us for the future. And the last question for Panis. As technology advances rapidly, how can we make sure that those who are currently left behind, especially in rural or undeserved areas, can catch up?
The biggest challenge is not about advanced technology in rich schools, but how to include those who are left behind already. If we are talking about equal opportunity, that assumes there is already equal preparedness. So what we need today is we must make sure that all students, be it in the rural or in the urban area, have equal opportunity to access technology. And that is key. And in our own experience, we work with young Indonesians who are willing to be a teacher through Indonesia Mengajar project. These are best university graduates that serve a year as teachers of elementary school in a remote area. We have been seeing that citizens can mobilize to reach remote schools, bridge infrastructure gaps, bring hope to children in isolated villages, only if civil society and government work together. So the key is for government not to monopolize the work in addressing inequality in education. Invite civil society, invite community activists to be part of the effort, because often they are the one who are able to reach all the way to the most remote communities in our society. Now, when we talk about digital divide, let's also enlarge our conversation that we need not only to talk about digital divide, but also learning divide. Some children are already far behind, and unless we act differently, they will never catch up with whatever technology is provided. So what are the solutions? There are three potential solutions that I would offer here. One is high dosage tutoring. That is intensive, regular, small group tutoring 3 to 5 times a week. This is proven to accelerate learning, especially for children who are several grade levels behind. But, and this is not one-time remedial, but sustained support. Two is community learning pods. Local groups of 8 to 12 children, guided by trained facilitator or volunteers, learning together outside formal school hours. And then this has been proven to be useful when schools were lack of teachers or when digital access is weak or unavailable. And the third possible solutions is peer-to-peer mentoring. Older students helping younger students in a structured lessons. This has been practiced in many remote areas, and it's proven to build confidence in both the mentors and also the learners. So those are three possible solutions. But the principle is this: education is an ecosystem. It is not only government, but also communities, NGOs, private sectors, local leaders, all must collaborate. And inclusion is not a side issue. It is the core of reform. If we fail the weakest, the whole system fails. So building an ecosystem is a must, and we must always address problems from the lens of ecosystem. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pa Anis, for setting the stage with those insights from policy to grassroots innovations. And now we're moving on to the regional speakers from Vietnam, Malaysia, and Cambodia. I'll pose several open questions. Feel free to jump in or build on each other's points. My first question would be for Professor Lam. My question is, Singapore and Vietnam consistently perform well in global education assessments like PISA. What lessons or practices from these success stories could be realistically adapted across other ASEAN countries?
Yeah, thank you very much for the question. Before getting to the answer of the question, I would like to share my background regarding to my education. I'm currently the vice rector of Lạc Hồng University in Vietnam. I am currently be the assessor of the National Accreditation Council. So I have observed a lot of other universities in terms of public versus private universities. And I'm also in charge of the international affairs. So I have worked closely with other partners in Malaysia, in Thailand, in Philippines. And this time I've just come to work with ESA UNCO. And from my personal observation, I totally agree with Mr. Anis regarding to the current status of the higher education system in those countries. And I can find that we have several similar things. For example, the facilities, the mindset, and a lot of things. That is the gap between the rural and versus urban students, something like that. So I totally agree. And based regarding to the performance of the Vietnamese students in the global assessment like PISA, I would like to share that in Vietnam we have a very strong policy and commitment from the government regarding to the education for all of the Vietnamese citizens. So from the kindergarten to the secondary high school, it is a must. So all of the citizens have to take the class. And before 2020, all of the students taking the teacher education, they are free. And they don't need to pay the tuition. And the government support all the tuition for the teachers' education. But from 2020 until now, the students need to pay for their tuition. And because Vietnam has a long history of war and the destruction was severe, and one of the ways that the Vietnamese can escape from the poverty is try their best to study. And that's one of the ways that they can get up and learn a lot of things to get a very high score in terms of the global assessment. And we also know that from 1986, the government got the academic reforms, and we get to the international exposure, and we learn a lot of things from the best practice from our partners. And that's my sharing. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much for your answer and sharing about free and accessible education in Vietnam. My next question, still for Professor Lam. Vietnam's economy and foreign investment have grown rapidly in the past decade. How much has education been a game changer in that progress? And what's the link between education and economic growth in Vietnam?
Yeah, thank you. And this question is closely linked to the previous one. It is because Vietnam consider education is a strategic policy. And because students are away, the teachers' education are away from the tuition. And currently, from September 2025, we have a very good policy. There is all of the students, pupils, from kindergarten to the grade 12, they are all waived the tuition. And I think Vietnam is the first university in ASEAN to have that kind of policy. And it is valid from September 2025. And that's because Vietnam, we have the one term, other is say that talented are the vital force of our nation. That's why we focus a lot on education. Another one there is from the international exposure, and we think that education is one of the strategies to escape from the poverty. So all of the parents from the very rural, from very poor families in the rural areas, they also try their best to have their kids sent to the school to become educated. And that's why all of the Vietnamese students, they are trying very hard to improve themselves in terms of knowledge, skills, and also the attitudes toward the working place. That's why the FDI investors, they don't think Vietnam workforce is just only the low-cost assembly, but they think that Vietnam workforce is now the value-added production. And that's why Vietnam, we can attract a lot of projects, FDI projects, and it will become a very, one of the key for the economic development over the past decade. And that's why we can conclude that education is one of the game changer in Vietnam for the economic growth. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Lam, for sharing how education is a hope to escape poverty. Now I would like to move on to Mr. Samuel. My question for Mr. Samuel would be on teachers. Teachers, as we all know, are at the heart of every reform. What kind of support, training, or incentives can help improve teacher motivation and welfare in the long run?
Thank you, Chelsea. So I taught in a rural Malaysian school for about a decade, and I think, as they say, once a teacher, always a teacher. So I'm going to do an activity with everyone. Is everyone okay with that? I'm just going to check to see if you're paying attention. So if I say hi, I want you to say hello. And if I say hello, I want you to say hi. Are you clear? Hi. Hello. Hi, hi, hello. Hello, hello, hi, hi. Thank you so much. So I think why I wanted to get your attention is because I want to talk about the idea of the status of teachers in society, all right? And I need your participation again. So I've got two questions. Question number one is for the younger people in the audience, and question number two is for individuals who are 20 years old with plus 20 experience, if you get what I mean. So for the young people in the room, how many of you would place teaching as your number one profession that you want to pursue? Put up your hands. I think I only see 10 in about, do we have 1,000 people here? Right. And for the older folks, how many of you would want your children, your grandchildren, your nephews, your nieces to pursue or to become a teacher? Hands up. 4. And I think that is the issue. I think the status of teaching has deteriorated significantly over the years. I think we have embraced the Western ideals where they say if those who can't do, teach. But in our culture, in the Asian ASEAN culture, teaching or teachers used to be at the top of the social hierarchy. We used to call them guru, right? In Indonesia, in Malaysia as well. And it comes with a lot of respect. Data and research also shows that the higher the perception of teachers in society, the higher the student outcomes. So I think we must all come together and uplift the teaching profession. The question is, how? If you look at our closest, most successful neighbor, Singapore, one of the best things that they do, and they continually do, and by that it's also other countries who continually rank at the top 3 of the top 5 of the PISA scores, they pay their teachers pretty damn well. Their teachers are the top 5%, top 1% of the graduates every year. So we must look at how we are actually attracting the best talents into the classroom. Because if we don't have the best teachers teaching in the classroom, nothing will change. My time is up, but I'm just going to end with a second point. Uplift the teaching profession, uplift the status of teachers. Another key area that I think we need to focus on, and I think it's something that we don't focus on in this region, is teacher continuous professional development. I can provide you the stats in Malaysia. I think it's quite similar to other Southeast Asian countries. We do not invest enough in teacher continuous professional development. And one of the biggest challenges within our education ecosystem is today, I was just talking to Chelsea earlier on, what was relevant last year is not relevant this year anymore. Last year we had ChatGPT 2.0, 3.0, and now it's like, what, 6.0 already. We used to speak a lot about large language models, now we are talking more about personalized models. And the education system is not designed in a way to be reactive to that speed of changes. And the only way that we can adapt and the only way that we can cater to these teachers, if our teachers, to these changes, is if our teachers are skilled enough to adapt to these changes, right? So we've got skilled teachers in the classroom. If you've got highly qualified teachers in the classroom who are well-trained, who are professionals, I think that is when we can see changes in our education ecosystem.
Thank you so much for your answer. Such a powerful enlightenment on how we should uplift the perception of teacher and teaching in general. My next question, how can governments, the private sectors, and communities work together to bring digital tools into the classroom?
Yes, okay. I'd like to echo what Pak Anis said earlier on. I think he mentioned something about a whole of society approach where the government, civil society, private sector all coming together. I think that is brilliant. In Malaysia, we launched something last year to address learning loss in the country. It was called Program Anak Kita. It was a program to address learning loss at scale. I had a hand in designing that initiative, but I saw the power of a collective, that when everybody comes together, we have a sense of ownership. I think that is most important. We must have skin in the game. When you have skin in the game, it becomes very personal to you, right? You don't see the issues from afar. This is beyond the idea of technology or whatever it is. I think technology is one of the key areas, but if it's personal, you want to have a say in it, all right? And I think one of the biggest things that we can do, or the biggest commitments that I think everybody in this room should commit to, especially diplomats, politicians, high government officials. My question to you is, where are you sending your kids to? Are you sending your kids to public schools or to private schools? If you are sending your kids to public schools, you fight for that equity. You fight for that equal rights. You fight for that equal quality of education. And I think that's most important. Because we were talking earlier on as well, that if you had a child, you want the best for your child. Am I right? And if everybody in ASEAN, every child in ASEAN were to benefit from quality education, that's what we need to do. We need to have skin in the game. So I go back to my point earlier. When the idea of doing something as a collective is central to everything that we do, there is ownership in it. And I mentioned earlier on that I taught in a rural indigenous school. So in Malaysia, they are called the Orang Asli, the tribal schools. And one of the things that I learned from them was the idea of trust, cultivating trust with the community. If they didn't have my trust or I didn't have their trust, nothing would have worked. And one of the elders in the community told me this. I'm translating it into English. But he told me basically this: it's not what you do for us that matters. It's what you do with us that matters. You're just changing the word for and with, but it means a lot to the community that you're working with. So I think we need to do this together. We need to have skin in the game, and we need to do it with and not for.
Thank you so much, Mr. Samuel, for your answer. Now we're going to move on to Mr. Chetra. We're going to discuss about the education gap between urban and rural areas, which is a shared ASEAN challenge. How can we narrow that divide in infrastructure, teacher quality, and learning resources?
Thank you, Jesse. When you hear about urban and rural, and especially rural, what image do you see in your mind? For me, immediately, I will see a school who are underserved, under-resourced, lack of teachers, lack of material, infrastructure inadequate, and so on and so forth. So it is very basic that it become a priority for everyone. So the government, the donors, and also the community. The school is not owned by anyone, but the school is owned by everyone. Everyone should be part of the school. So my basic thinking about this is that we need to invest more in rural school because it should become the priority in, and also change the way that we allocate the budget from the government especially, but also from other stakeholders into this. So when we have enough budget resource to that, we can look at, we can refill the teacher shortage, like Mr. Samuel has said about all this program, incentive, attract the good people, and also the retain them to work. Especially in Cambodia, it happened the same way that teaching profession is the last choice. They fail all this exam in the science, in STEM, in computer, in architect. And then the last one is to go to teaching profession. So it is a very basic that we need to invest that so we can have more good teacher. So when we have well-prepared teacher, well-trained teacher, it is important step to have a good quality of education for children in rural area. And plus, if we have enough, we can build more infrastructure, especially connectivity. If we want to move on with the digital learning, distance learning, access to many platforms, resource online now is good. So yeah, so we have to build on that. And last point is the school leadership is also one of the important aspect on that. So when we have a good leader in school, good community engagement, we can bring the gap between the urban and the rural. Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Mr. Chatra, for sharing the importance of having a good quality of education in rural areas. And finally, the last question. At the foundational level, what are the first concrete reforms ASEAN countries should prioritize to solve the learning crisis?
Learning crisis happen everywhere, but the fundamental solution for that is we have to have a very good program on literacy and numeracy. It is, and it have to be intensive to work. So we have to start with have a universal access to school from children from 3 to 5 years old, because as children access to school, they can learn better. And there's evidence to show that children who are access to preschool have a better result in grade 1 and in the grade 2 and so forth, right? So it is important to look at that and push to have a universal access to, of the children at grade 3 and grade 5. Teacher training on the early grade reading and early grade mathematics is important. So the investment again is to focus on that, and the teacher reform need to be done immediately. And the second part of that is I go back again to the school leadership. I still emphasize on the school leadership. When we have a good leader in the school, we can can lead the school better, and also the school leader should not only for management purpose or administrative purpose, but it must also be instructional leadership. So they can support the teacher, coach teacher, and plan on capacity building and so on. The third point of my intervention is that continuous professional development should be at the heart of the teacher capacity building also. So encourage teacher to enroll in courses will help them to upgrade their knowledge, especially in the digital time. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, sir, very much, Mr. Chatra, for sharing. And thank you for all panelists for your insights. That was a very insightful exchange across four countries and perspectives. And now we're going to hear from our discussants, representatives of civil society organizations who will each have about 2 minutes to share a reflection or a question. I'd like to invite, first off, Brian Matthew Eugene Gabriel, Policy Executive at Higher Education Malaysia Association, and Rafsi Azam Hibatullah Albar, Executive Director of the Indonesian Institute for Education Reform, and Assistant Professor John Carlo Ramos, Executive Director of the ASEAN Teacher Education Network from the Philippines. You may have the floor from Mr. Brian.
Stand up. Nice to meet everyone, and also the people of Indonesia. I'm from Higher Education Youth Association, HEA, you can Google it. So just to reflect on our panelists' key discussion points, I think I like the ecosystem and collective approach as mentioned by our first panelist, and also the free education mentioned by our second panelist. And representing Malaysia, Mr. Isaiah, idol of mine. Yeah, we need to pay our teachers more. And from our fourth panelist about school leaders, yeah, is super important for the community. However, I think from a perspective of a 24-year-old, a youth with lived experience in the Malaysian education system, I believe that the only way to upgrade and reform our education system is by the smartest people, not only becoming teachers, but also joining politics and becoming the key decision makers to actually put the reform into the system. Because I've seen for years that the smartest people are not inside the room making the decision. Most of the time, all of us are having these conferences, these summits, but I mean, we all know what's the solution to the problem, but are we in the room making the decision? Yeah. So that's my message to the youth of Indonesia. If you're the brightest, if you are the smartest, don't only join corporate, don't only join civil societies like me, but please join politics. And if you're really passionate to change your country's education system, enter the room and make the decision yourself. Thank you.
Moving on to our next discussant, Mr. Rafsi.
Thank you very much. So first of all, thank you AFPC and FPCI for organizing this very momentous talk with regards to education. Of course, at a time when it is very important for us to address these complex issues as an ecosystem. And I think just to reflect on Pak Anis's point, us at the Indonesian Institute for Education Reform, we really focus on enabling ecosystems. We focus on 4 stakeholders: funders, policymakers, education institutions, and communities. So I really resonate what you just said with regards to ecosystem, and especially coming personally also from a law background, your statement with regards to the ability to dream. When we say the right to education, I think it's important to also acknowledge the right to dream as part of realizing the right to education. Now, there are some reflections that I think are important to make, and I think this plays into the idea of ecosystem, because everything that the panelists have mentioned today really reflect this idea of connectivity in terms of the ideas that are brought up. For example, Mr. Isaiah, you put out the point with regards to how we can make sure that the status of teachers are elevated in the society. And also at the same time, Mr. Q, you mentioned about the importance of making sure that there's good leadership and that schools are accessible for everyone. Now, with this being said, I'd like to raise two questions, actually, if it's okay. So from your experiences, Pak Anis with Indonesia Mengajar and Mr. Isaiah with Pemimpin, what do you think are the hindrances to scale up very great initiatives that we can see at the grassroots level? Because of course we see that there are many interesting ideas that we can explore, and especially these are done by people at the grassroots across regions, in Indonesia, for example. But there are hindrances. There must be hindrances that we have to identify, because many of these great ideas do not find their way at national scale. So that's my first question. And the second question, I think this pertains to this first one as well. This is a bit anecdotal, but I want you to reflect on this. If there's one thing you can change tomorrow, if you had the power to change one thing tomorrow about education, be it a policy, be it a mindset, or a module or approach to education, what would that thing be so that we can steamroll this virtuous cycle for change? Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. Rafsi, for your questions. Moving on to our next discussant, Mr. John Carlo.
Good afternoon, mabuhay from the Philippines. I am John Carlo Ramos from the ASEAN Teacher Education Network. And probably I'll just give my insights, but because my ideas resonate well with our speakers. Number one, there's a famous saying, and we've been reading this a lot in many education reports, that no society can rise above the quality of its teachers. And teachers are key players in education. So the quality of the society we have, lies on the quality of our teachers. So the central question is, how do we support our teachers so they can teach better? Because if we don't have competent teachers, then we will be expecting more learning crisis and learning gaps. Another one is that, teachers should be part of the decision-making process in education. Our education systems are failing not because we have incompetent teachers, but we had normalized education decisions driven not by data but by politics. So that's one of the problems. And then we should look at teacher well-being. Teachers, mostly, it's not becoming an attractive job because most of the teachers are overworked and underpaid. And then the curriculum should, I think it was mentioned that the curriculum should help our learners become job ready, but we also have to teach or to develop or to reform our curriculum to focus as well on humanity and ethics, not just being job ready. Because let us be reminded that even the crooked leaders are products of our education system. So let us take note of that. And then last, we have to capacitate our teachers. As I see in a lot of instances in the rise of AI in education, it's not the students who are afraid of AI, it's the teachers who are afraid of AI because they are not well equipped to handle those fast-changing developments in education. And lastly, let us not forget, Happy World Teachers Day, everyone, for all teachers here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Mr. John, for your questions and insights. Now I would like to invite our speakers to briefly respond to any of the questions and also comments from the discussants. Okay.
Thank you very much for the questions from the discussions. And for generally to reform our education ecosystem, I think it's very important that Asian countries, they need to get together to create the policy frameworks that can recognize the micro credentials or reskill or upskill programs that the workers get trained from one country. They can get seamlessly pursue other opportunities across the region. And I think how to get back to have that kind of framework is very important. And currently in the ASEAN countries, we have the CML retract. And currently it performs very well in terms of education and trainings, in terms of language and other skills. But they can work better to provide stronger functions, that is, create the core skills that can be used and accepted across the countries, across the sectors in ASEAN. And it's important. So the CML retract should reposition itself as that kind of certificates. That's my answer. Thank you.
Could respond to some of the feedback. I think I totally agree with the discussants, because the quality of an education system cannot surpass the quality of teachers. It's totally determined by the quality of teachers. I think one of the points that he mentioned earlier on, I think he mentioned that whatever money that we put into this, be it to pay teachers more or to upskill them, it mustn't be looked at as an expense. It should be looked at as an investment. I think there are recent data to show that where each additional year of education for a child can increase a person's annual earning by 10%, all right? And investing $1 in education in developing countries like ours generates between $10 to $15 in economic growth. So there are clear numbers to indicate that when we invest in education, we see the multiplier effect happening. I'd just like to end with one thing about the hindrance of scaling up for that question. So a few years ago, I designed a teacher professional development application in Malaysia. And one of the key ideas behind it is we were really focused on the idea of relevance. Whatever solutions that we introduce to teachers or schools has got to be relevant to their context. Because as some of the discussants mentioned earlier on, they struggle with a lot of things, right? They don't have time, there's lots of clerical work and this and that. So solutions must be relevant to the context that we are seeing within ASEAN and to focus on particular countries as well. The second most biggest hindrance, I would say, is bureaucracy. Right? Within ministries of education itself, there's just so many layers, I cannot believe it, for good solutions, for good practices to actually be scaled across the system. And lastly, I think when we are looking for solutions that work, we should look for solutions that come from classrooms. I think there are a lot of solutions that work at different parts of ASEAN countries, in Cambodia, in Philippines, in the rural parts of Indonesians. Let's take a look. Let's put a microscope on these schools, identify solutions that work, and scale those solutions. Because it's not about what is the next best shiny solution that we can introduce. It's about introducing the solution that works for us and how we can do it better together.
Thank you so much for sharing. Does any of the speaker panelists would like to
Chelsea,
add?
if I may respond to this great discussions that we have heard. Number one, Brian, I agree with what you said earlier. We need the smart people, not only in business, not only in the civil society, but also in politics. We need to have smart people in politics. And if I may add to that, on top of being smart, is people of integrity, person of integrity. If you combine the two, integrity and intellectual, you will have powerful politicians in your system. That's clear. And then number two, with regard to what are the hindrances of good idea, I agree what you said earlier. If I may add to that, we in government often think that with authority come knowledge. It actually doesn't work that way. You may have authority, but you may not have the knowledge, right? So that mindset needs to be there. And government need to reach out to communities, especially those who are practicing educations. So who are they? School teachers. That's number one. Number two, school principals. So those are key. I think if the mindset is shifted from being regulator, from being service providers in educations, into collaborator of educations. And then you're seeing others as partners for education. So it's not, when you're seeing parents, you don't see them simply as customer of educations, but you should see them as partner in educating our children. So that mindset needs to be shifted. And then number two, given diversity of our society, especially in Indonesia, we often need not to make everything symmetric across Indonesia. Allow diversity in our policy. Those living in the highland, those living in the rural area, those living in the coastal area, they may have different sociological setting that policies of education in those areas need to be tailored to the need, including schedules of the school year. Our school system, the schedule is adjusted nationally, and often it doesn't work and doesn't sync with the local needs. So let's allow rooms, Rafsi, for diversity of contents, diversity of policy across Indonesia. Now, we all mentioned about teachers and the importance of teachers. If I may ask the audience on the issue of teachers and 21st century and technology. There's one simple question. Can teacher be replaced by technology? Raise your hand if you say no, if I may see. Can teachers be replaced by technology? No? All right, thank you. Those who think teachers were replaceable by technology, raise your hand. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. All right, thank you. Perhaps my questions were phrased in the wrong setting. If I rephrase the questions, what kind of teachers is replaceable by technology? What kind of teachers that can never be replaced by technology? You will see the answer clearly, right? So there are teachers who are replaceable by technology. So what matters is not about the technology, but about the teachers. If we improve the quality of the teachers, no longer mechanistic, no longer just recycling materials, then we will find our teachers irreplaceable by technology. Okay? But if teachers were repeating materials, mechanistic, it's so replaceable by technology. So we need to improve the quality of our teachers so that they will be able to use technology and teach better students, be better teachers. And if I may add to that, it is way much more important, besides improving the quality of our teachers, is improving the quality of our school principal, because leadership matters. If the leaders of our schools were able to manage their school in a way like a business sectors is doing, then we will be able to see excellent schools. So if I may suggest, for business sectors, to form collaborations with schools and improve managerial skills, leadership skills of our school principals, so we will be able to improve the quality of our teaching in the school and improve the quality of our education through the leadership of their principal. Let me end it there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Pak Anies, for sharing your insights. I would like to invite our panelists now to briefly respond and to share a final reflection or a closing statement before wrapping up this session. Maybe starting from Pak Anies. Yep.
Closing statements here. All right. The questions that was raised to me earlier is about what is outdated from our school system. I think we need to reimagine educations for the age we live in. And if I may, one more time to give questions to our audience. You may use your cell phone because I would like to ask questions and please answer my questions. I have two questions. First questions. Please answer privately and don't look to your next person. Be honest. Jangan mencontek. No cheating. 8 by 7 equals. Please write your answer. That question is number 1. Question number 2, or assignment number 2, can you write 2 lines that rhymes? 2 lines that rhymes. Tuliskan 2 kalimat berpantun. Can I have a volunteer to answer question number 1? Is there anyone whose answer is not 56? Raise your hand. It's not 56. Okay. So our education system works well. All answers 56. Second questions. Can I have volunteers to read your lines? 2 lines that rhymes. Can we have volunteers? Raise your hand. Yes, please come in. Can the committee lend him a microphone? Two lines that rhymes.
Thank you, Mr. Anis Baswedan, for the question. I would like to introduce myself. My name is Miromia Fatara Blavatsky. I'm from South Jakarta, Sekolah Chiga. And then my line is Indonesian. 2 lines is pergi ke sekolah menuntut ilmu, masa depan cerah takkan kelabu. That's it. Thank you, sir.
Nice. Your nickname, please?
Sorry, sir?
Panggilannya, nickname?
Miru, sir. Miru.
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 Oke. Bisa diulang sekali lagi pelan-pelan kalimatnya? Repeat your lines slowly.
Pergi ke sekolah menuntut ilmu.
Pergi
Masa
ke sekolah
depan
menuntut ilmu.
cerah takkan kelabu.
Terima kasih. Kasih tepuk tangan buatmu. Can I have one more volunteers? A lady, if I may. Equal opportunity. Yes.
Hello, test.
Yes.
Hi, everyone. My name is Myra Siragar. I go to the University of Al-Azhar, Indonesia, for the
Two lines,
the
rhymes,
two
yeah.
rhymings. I actually wrote this last week. It's not about Indonesia, sadly, but it's for those yang mungkin bercinta atau ada pacar. Roses are red, violets are blue. Somewhere in my heart lies a flower bed. I have a bouquet for someone like you. Perhaps that could be you, Pak Anies.
Unfortunately, it was written last week, so anyway. With these 2 questions, is there anyone whose pantun, whose line, is exactly the same as the 2 that was read? None, right? Look, the first questions, everyone has the same answer. The second questions, no one has the same answer. The future of education is determined by the second questions and our ability to educate our children to answer second type questions. That's for the future. So, what is outdated in our education system, what is outdated, we've been teaching our children with the first type of questions, memorizations and everything. And we need to sift that. So if I may conclude as a closing remark, it is very important for us to start sifting into 21st century approach in educations. And that education must not simply prepare people for jobs, and therefore do not use the word human resource development plan, but it's human capital, human development. That's what needed. And then the third aspect is inclusion. It is extremely important to address inclusion in our system, and it is critical that all children across region, urban, rural, have equal access to one, schools, two, teachers, and both were quality schools, quality teachers. So, as a final call, ASEAN has a chance now to redefine educations as more than just a ladder for individual success, but education must be a foundation for a just, inclusive, and future-ready ASEAN community. And I think if we dare to rethink boldly, education can be Southeast Asia's greatest contributions to the world. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Pak Anies Baswedan, for sharing your insights. And thank you for everyone for joining us. May our shared vision of an inclusive and empowered ASEAN education system continue beyond this room. I would like to return the floor back to the MC. Thank you very much. Give a round of applause for our panelists.
Yes, and thank you. Agatha Chelsea, please give a round of applause as well for our moderator, ladies and gentlemen. And of course, thank you, panelists, for the discussion. And we invite you to please take a position center stage. For next, we will hand over a token of appreciation as a sign of a gratitude from FPCI. And we invite the team to please hand out a token of appreciation, a special FPCI jacket for all panelists, and of course, our moderator. Thank you, Agatha Chelsea, moderating this session. And thank you, Bapak Anies Baswedan. Thank you, Associate Professor Dr. Nguyen Tan Lam. Thank you, Mr. Samuel Azaya and Mr. Chetra Kiev. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, please give a round of applause for the moderator and panelists of session A5. And yes, please, can you please come towards the center as we will take a picture for session A5. And I will help with the countdown. 3, 2, 1. Once again, 3, 2, 1. All right, thank you very much. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, speakers and moderator for A5, you may now return to your seats. And we hope everyone had a great discussion in this session. Ideas to upgrade and reform our education ecosystem. So who is ready to become a teacher after the session? Raise of hands. Yes. Gentlemen, it appears that there are more people from our participants who are aspiring to become educators, and of course, those who will shape the future of our education ecosystem in ASEAN. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, we will continue to today's agenda at AFPC 2025, because in just a moment, we will continue to our closing plenary session. But before we do, ladies and gentlemen, and of course, Bapak dan Ibu hadirin, kami mohon untuk bisa memberikan atau mengembalikan alat interpretasi yang telah digunakan kepada panitia jika memang hendak keluar dari ruangan ini. Tetapi kami harapkan juga untuk tetap berada di tempat, karena sesaat lagi kita akan ikuti bersama closing plenary session. All right, ladies and gentlemen, once again, we remind you that we will begin in just a few moments the closing plenary of AFPC 2025. So therefore, we kindly request for you to please stay in your seats as we are soon to begin our next session. Thank you.